Greetings, I'm Dr. Sean Reed, author of the Dating Toolbox, available on Amazon.com. Today I want to talk about the attack on masculinity. You hear everywhere, oh, masculinity is toxic, it's bad, right? Well, I'm going to argue instead that men need to embrace their masculinity. Embrace your masculinity. Masculinity is a good thing. I argue that because civilizations were built on masculinity. If we look at all civilizations emerging out of Africa, the Persian Empire, the Greeks, the Romans, Western Europe, Japan, China, which has a culture that's nearly 6,000 years old. All these cultures were built on masculinity, okay? Modern technology, modern science is all the product of masculinity. We have science, technology, roads, infrastructure, power grids, water supply, inventions, right? The phone I'm using right now, all the product of masculinity. So masculinity is not toxic. Masculinity is what is responsible for the very good lives we live today. Basically, were it not for masculinity, we would all be living in caves. Now, I'm not here to say there's something wrong with femininity. As a matter of fact, femininity is a wonderful thing. I have nothing but good things to say about femininity. But the reality is our culture, our society, our civilization is constantly disparaging masculinity, constantly arguing that femininity is superior to masculinity. And I argue that we need both. We need both as a culture, and we need both as families to raise healthy children, which is ultimately what I'm all about in the work that I do. Okay, so what we have today is we have an attack on men, a war against men. Like I said, masculinity is portrayed in our media, on TV, on websites, right? Masculinity on the internet constantly, the drumbeat is masculinity is bad, and I'm telling you it is not. It's good. So what has happened as a byproduct of this attack on masculinity? One of the very bad things, fathers are devalued, husbands are devalued, families are devalued. So one of the big negative, really bad consequences of this attack on masculinity has been the decline in populations. Okay, in pretty much everywhere in the world except sub-Saharan Africa, where unfortunately resources are very short. So that's the only place in the world where we're seeing an increase in population. The rest of the world, modern, Western civilization, America, Europe, Australia, Japan, we are seeing a massive decline in populations, and this is a product of the attack on masculinity. So what does this mean for us? It means that we as a civilization, as a culture, as a people are at risk, right? What's at risk? Our food supplies, our health, our environment. One of the consequences of this will be war over diminishing resources, right? Let me explain how this works. You have populations, and normally you have ebbs and flows. You have a certain amount of people that are old, certain amount of people that are very young, and then a large chunk of people in the middle who are working, paying taxes, making things, providing goods, providing services. What has happened now is we have a massive dearth. You need like about 2.2, 2.3 people for every 2 people to maintain your population base. Without that, you have a massive decline in workers and people coming into the system. So what we are seeing in America and Japan and places like that today is we are seeing a lot of old people who are retired, no longer working, they're no longer paying in the system. They have tremendous healthcare costs. They're drawing Social Security. They're drawing heavily on the system. Now, the solution isn't to get rid of old people. Old people, they've all worked all their life to earn this. What normally happens is you have a large number of people being bored, young people coming into the system, working, paying taxes. We no longer have that. So we're going to see a collapse in our civilization. That's why we're gonna see a struggle over resources and war. Another big thing we have that's not talked about, politicians constantly sweep this under the rug, are deficits. We have massive deficits. The U.S. deficit right now is $70,000 for every person in this country. Imagine if you had $70,000 on your credit card, you would be screwed, right? But as a country, we keep pushing off the deficit on the smaller and smaller group of younger people working. So young people are going to have to work harder, are going to have to pay more taxes, and are going to get less out of the system. And I predict that eventually young people are going to revolt. They're going to say, screw this, and that's why we're going to have war over resources. So one of the solutions, I argue, to this is to strengthen our families, right? Is to make marriage. Women and men naturally want to get married. It's built into us. What happens is, in a lot of this, for women come into the university system, and as a member of the university system for more than 20 years, we teach them, women come in saying, I want to get a husband, I want to start a family. We teach them, no, that this is bad. And I'm okay with this idea because I think 18 to 22-year-olds should be focusing on their education and then career. And then around the age of 25, 26, a woman should get serious about getting married. But that's not the way it works anymore. Our women don't want to get married at all. And if they do, it's usually at the age of 35 or 40 when they're no longer able to have children that they want to get serious about marriage. Men, on the other hand, because of the constant attack on men, the constant attack on masculinity, and men see that marriage is a bad deal. 50% of marriages end in divorce. 70% of the time, it's the woman filing divorce. Again, women file divorce is a byproduct of the attack on masculinity. Men are bad, right? We are taught. So it must be perfectly fine to divorce them. So our whole system, a big chunk of the problem is a product of our attack on masculinity, our attack on husbands, our attack on fathers. So that's why we need something to solve this problem. That's why I do what I do, because the only thing I argue that men can do is to learn how to get women to love them and how to keep them in love with you. That's the only solution. That's the only power that men really have today. So that's why I devote myself to that cause, because I'm telling you, the storm is coming. As this population balance gets worse and worse, which is a product of our attack on masculinity, nothing but bad things are going to happen. So men, I tell you, embrace your masculinity. It's a good thing.